What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel, and we're back with another recapping of the best of 2024 video. And today we are going to be discussing the best fighters from 2024, who had the best year in the year of 2024, who put a stamp on the year, who let the fans know that they were here to stay, who defended their belt, who rose up the rankings, etc, etc. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we're also going to be talking about those people that had an atrocious year, those that should be packing it up, should be ending their careers, or they're just in a rough spot and weren't able to get on the win column in 2024. So we're covering all bases. We got the best of the year, the worst of the year. But yeah, let me know in the comments who I missed, because I'm sure I'll always miss someone in these videos. But yeah, also let me know who your fighters of the year are, your top 5, top 3, whatever, and who do you think had the worst year too. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Guys, let me tell you about this kid, Carlos Prates. This kid's badass. Prates, in my opinion, he was not the one person who made it, but he was one of the guys who defined 2024. Now, I already know the comments that are going to be coming. It's alright, you can fucking say glaze all you want, but be honest, like, which fighters that, I'm going to include more after this, but like, tell me who you would have over Prates, like in terms of someone that put an impact, like that had the biggest impact on the, like, fighting nerds as a whole, not even just Prates, but fighting nerds gym as a whole was one of the biggest like points of the year. Like, we had UFC 300, we had like Holloway getting that KO, we had Pereira's 3 wins, we had Topurio beating 2 featherweight greats, but like we had Buckley winning 4 times, like Lopes had a bit of a stamp on the year. But fighting nerds were one of the biggest storylines of the year. Like, the fighting nerds plot armor, these guys have become fan favorites within a year, and Prates, in my opinion, led the charge. Even though Borralho was the first one in the UFC, I think Prates, and Borralho is still the highest ranked, I think Prates out of the group definitely had the best 2024, securing 4 KOs, 4 finishes, 4 bonuses as well. So yeah, I'm putting him in the top tier. I don't give a fuck. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, Nassourdine Imavov, one of the better non-title fighters of the year, securing 3 wins, 2 of which in main events, and all 3 over ranked opponents, of course. Delidzi in a dominant 50-40 or 49-45 or 49-44 win to start off the year. Then we had the TKO early stoppage over Cannoneir, and then we had the 29-28 unanimous decision over Brendan Allen to end the year. Definitely a good year for Imavov, definitely stamped himself and rose up the rankings as a middleweight contender, and he's now got himself a fight with Israel Adesanya booked in February, and if he can win that, he's setting himself up for a good 2025 as well, and potentially appearing on this list again this time next year if he can get that win and maybe one more later on in the year. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, we got Joshua Van. Now, although he did get KO'd earlier in the year against Charles Johnson in his second fight of the year, he was 1-1 at that point. He then went on to win 2 fights. So any person who wins 3 fights in a year is just going to be on the list. He did lose 1, but overall, I think Van had a positive kind of effect on the fan. Like, he gained positive support or positive like thought process from the fans, or reception, I guess, from the fans after his latest 2 wins against Edgar Shara in a sick fight, and then Cody Durden in a pretty dominant performance at UFC 310. So yeah, Van, he's now cracked into the rankings despite getting KO'd earlier in the year. So I do still think he has made a splash this year as a 23-year-old contender in the flyweight division with not much hope on the horizon. He's definitely one of the guys who he's never going to fight Pantoja because their ages and the career paths just aren't going to line up, but like, definitely a guy who could challenge for the flyweight title in the future. Anyway, let's move on though to another fighter. Next up, we got Marlon Chito Vera. Pretty simple, 2 losses, no wins. Was on the end of a bad beating against Sean O'Malley in a title fight, which he didn't even deserve, and then he goes around and gets tuned up by Figgy and loses there. So yeah, not a great year for Chito Vera after his 2023 wasn't even good either. He went 1-1. So yeah, Chito Vera been in a bit of a rough patch recently. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Jamal Hill, the only person on this list, I'm pretty sure, with 1 fight this year, but it was just such a bad result, and his follow-up since then has honestly made it worse. Because if he'd gone around and then fought Khalil Roundtree at UFC 303 as he was booked to do, then he would be fine. I probably wouldn't even have him that badly on this list. I might have him at like a decent year or something with the rebound performance. But no, he didn't fight. Everyone's still got the bad taste of that Pereira KO in their mouths. And since then, he's gone on to just do a whole bunch of yapping, saying a whole lot of nothing. By the way, the referee should have separated them more, and the referee's the one that distracted Jamal Hill because it wasn't a nut shot. But if it was a nut shot, then Alex Pereira took advantage of the nut shot and then KO'd him while Jamal Hill wasn't ready. So yeah, that's the Hill logic, that's the Hill copium. But yeah, he's had an absolutely awful 2024. Pretty much losing any fans that he would have had earlier in the year. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, Anato Money Moicano. Let me tell you something. This dude came into the year coming off a fucking year and a half layoff, coming off a Brad Riddell submission where he had one of the best post-fight interviews ever. We almost forgot about him. And then he comes back against Drew Dober, wins, elite post-fight interview, not the most entertaining fight, but a great post-fight interview, turns around like 2 months later on UFC 300, gets a comeback win over Jalen Turner, drops another fucking banger of a post-fight interview. Let me tell you something. He starts talking about fucking Austrian economics and shit, and then he goes around and fights in France against Benoit Saint-Denis. And let me tell you something. I have no issue with French. French good people. And then he just starts going off Macron, fuck globalist. Moicano just going full based, and he's cemented himself as a fan favorite fighter, got the podcast going, and everyone loves Moicano now, and he's setting himself up for like basically a top 5 opportunity in January. So Moicano, while not the biggest name wins like Dober, Turner, BSD, he has cemented himself as a fan favorite and really got the fan attention on him in a good way in 2024. So yeah, great job Moicano, definitely one of the fighters of the year. Let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, Shara Magomedov, 3 wins, 2 finishes. Not the best level of opponents, but he's now set himself up for a fight with MVP, and he's now made the middleweight rankings. So yeah, after the debut against Bruno Silva, he beat Antonio Tricoli, Mikhail Olekjaychik, and Armen Petrosian, and that's managed to get him ranked, so fair play, Shara. But good KO as well against Armen. That was a sick KO. I think I forgot that on my KO on the year tier list. I don't know how. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, let me tell you about this Jean Silva. This kid's badass. Anyway, Jean Silva, amazing year, not quite as good as Prates, of course. 3 wins instead of 4, 3 finishes as well for Jean Silva. The KO of Jourdain, the fight of the year, or not fight of the year, sorry, fight of the night with Drew Dober, ending in a stoppage, and obviously the beating that he put on Weston Wilson at the start of the year. So yeah, definitely a great year for Jean Silva. Set himself up for definitely a ranked opponent next year after he gets through Melsik Bagdasaryan. And yeah, again, cemented himself as a fan favorite, like a sort of unranked, like, fighter to watch fan favorite as part of those Fighting Nerds guys. Anyway, let's move on to another fighter. Jared Cannoneir, rough year for Cannoneir. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. That was fucking terrible, I apologize. Jared Cannoneir, though, pretty bad year for him. Got stopped by Imavov early, yes, but still a stoppage loss. Not great for him, and then he turns around and loses it again to Barralho in another fight in our main event, and now he's going to get KO'd by Gregory Rodriguez in 2025. So it's a rough one for Cannoneir. Not looking good for him. Go off to the GFL and go KO Luke Rockhold again, Willa. I don't even know who fought him in the first place, but do it anyway. Who cares? That's a yes or no. Even I know that hasn't happened, but like yes or no, that just seems like a fight that like Rockhold would have been shinned in. Like, I'm not wrong for just mistakenly thinking across like the top of my head that probably happened. Anyway, it'll happen in 2026 because this dude's heading off to the GFL. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. I'm sorry, but Rebellis Despaigne. He fits in this tier perfectly though, because it's pack it up. He did pack it up. He left. He's off to the fucking GFL. He's off to Karate Combat. Just KO'd some fat dude in fucking 5 seconds flat. Like, bro, what has this guy's year been? Okay, last year, December, he gets like a 10-second KO, gets signed to the UFC. I did a predicting the rankings in 2024 video. I put this guy in my top 10. It was gotta be the worst take I've ever had on this channel. He makes his debut, KO's a fat bum in 10 seconds, whatever. I'm like, okay, sick. This dude's actually could be good. He then loses back-to-back fights by decision to Waldo Cortez Acosta, which is not good, but it's like, okay, the guy has some grappling. And then fucking Austin Lane. And then he legitimately gets cut from the promotion. And then within the same year that he made his UFC debut, he makes his Karate Combat debut and KO's a fat guy. Like, this dude has gone full circle. He's fought 5 times in basically the space of a year, which I respect, but again, the cycle. He's managed to get signed to the UFC, win his debut in 20 seconds, lose 2 fights in a row, get cut, and then make his debut in another promotion, all in a calendar year. Absolutely nuts. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Dricus du Plessis, mate. Nobody said anything about dogs, bro. Chill out. Dricus, definitely one of the fighters of the, I wouldn't say like a top 5 guy. He had 2 wins, 2 title wins, won the belt off Sean Strickland, and then defended it against Israel Adesanya. I'm giving the man bonus points for the fact that he made 2 men cry. I know the Strickland crying stemmed from the press conference last year, but still, this man had 2 build-ups to fights where he literally had the other man. Another fucking male human fist fighter, martial artist, emotionally unstable going into a fight. Like, crazy work from Dricus. Cannot wait for the next press conference and the Hums Up press conference. You already know, nobody think about dictators, bro. Chill out. Like, this dude's going to be going crazy. Anyway, let's move on, though, to the next fighter. Next up, who we got? We got Brandon Royval, Mr. 6 kids, 4 baby mamas. No, it was the reverse. 4 kids, 6 baby mamas. So that's what he said. The raw dog himself. Anyway, this dude's booked to fight Manel Cap, main event, March 1st. Sick fight. I'm probably going to lean towards Royval, but if Cap fights how he did against Silva, then he'll win probably. But that's the thing with Cap fights. If he's coming off a win, pick him to look mid in his next fight. That's what Cap does. But Royval, great 2024, beat Moreno by decision. I thought pretty clearly. I know some people scored it for Moreno. I did not see how that fight could have gone to him. And then he turned back Tatsuro Taira, took his O. So yeah, great year for Royval. And a good bounce back after losing his title shot to Pantoja. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, we got Fluffy Hernandez. I'm going to skim through some of these. He had a good 2024, subbed Kopolov, and then finished Michel Pereira dominantly. He was booked to fight, I believe it was Roman Dolidze, which definitely would have gone well for him, but unfortunately pulled out. Could have gone 3-0 this year, but regardless, he is booked to fight Brennan Allen. I hate Brennan Allen. I hate that man so much. I wanted just to put him in, pack it up just for the sake of it. But yeah, he's going to beat his ass, and yeah, it's good stuff for Fluffy Hernandez. Let's move on, though, to the next fighter. Next up, Kevin Holland. Overall, I wouldn't say a good year for Kevin Holland for Big Mouth. He did get the submission over Mikhail Oleksiejczyk, but I cannot pronounce Polish names, but he also did get tuned up and whooped by MVP, and he also did get finished by Roman Dolidze. So overall, I think this was a bad year for Kevin Holland. Anyway, let's move on, though, to another fighter. Next up, we got Anthony Smith. It's a rough year. I'm not going to pile on because I know he lost his coach, which is very sad. But yeah, you can't be losing to fucking Roman Dolidze. And even the Reyes loss isn't that bad, but like Vitor Petrino win has not aged well particularly. Yeah, it was not a good year for Smith, basically on the verge of retirement. You're off to GFL, go rematch Gustafsson, kid. Anyway, let's move on, though, to another fighter. Next up, Diego Lopes. Definitely one of the fighters who made 2024 as a whole, I believe. Like, this dude was the mini Pereira in terms of stepping up and saving events. Not saving, but, like, he fought on 300 and got a finish. He's on the same card as Pereira. He stepped up on 303 as the co-main event. Was gonna fight Ortega, then accepts a fucking shot, weighs in like 6 different times, accepts a fight in the end with Dan Ige on like 4 hours notice, wins that, and then goes and fights Ortega, beats his ass on 306, a card which needed some fucking help, and he definitely brought some entertainment to that card, because I'll tell ya, if he wasn't on there, I know we did have Ribovic and stuff, but like, yeah, that main and co-main was dismal. So Lopes, wouldn't say like he saved the UFC, but he definitely brought some more excitement to the company in the year, and his rapid climb up the rankings definitely drew some excitement from the fans. Anyway, let's move on though to another fighter. Next up, I worked so hard for this, you guys. Alejandro Pantoja, man, is tough fighters, you know, he's good guys. But Pantoja had a very good year, I would say. Not like one of the top 5 or top 10 fighters of the year. He could be top 10 because he did get 2 title wins. But again, it was against number 8 ranked or number 7 ranked or 10 ranked. I think it was 10 actually. Number 10 ranked Steve Erceg. And then it was debuting Kaya Sakura. So great wins, legacy increasing, but not like the best wins of his career. Monumental fucking Ilya Topurio. Like, Ilya beat 2 featherweight greats. Alejandro Pantoja beat a fucking guy on his like 4th UFC fight and a debuting fighter from Ryzen. Still good wins, but not high enough to put him in the top tier. Let's move on though to the next guy. Next up, Vinicius Oliveira, another guy who debuted this year and made a splash with the Flying Knee KO of the Year nomination against Bernardo Sope, and then a nasty, slick performance, 30-27 against Ricky Simone. Bro was throwing fucking Rabina kicks or whatever the fuck they're called. I don't know what it is, but yeah, Rabina, I don't fucking know. I don't watch soccer. But Vinicius Oliveira definitely asserted himself as a prospect to watch, and he's now fighting Said Nurmagomedov and lined as a plus 220 underdog, which is insane to me. Anyway, let's move on though to another fighter. Next up, Alexander Rakic. This dude is the light heavyweight Leon Edwards, the way he's fucking riding off one head kick KO for people to think he's still an entertaining fighter. And I've fallen victim because I picked this man against Magomed Ankalaev. But Rakic is seemingly not realizing that he's 6'4" with a fucking 80-inch reach or whatever, and some of the best fundamentals in the division, and then he just proceeds to throw like 5 shots around. It's very frustrating to watch, but he did look good against Yuri in a fight that he lost, and he did lose to Ankalaev. So yeah, rough year for Rakic after coming back from a long layoff, losing 2 in a row on a 3-fight skid now. Not a great look for him. I still think, bro, please move up to heavyweight. Ryan Spann and Kennedy and Nzechukwu have done it, and those guys are typically low IQ, you could guess, for no reason particularly. But Rakic, bro, you should be smart. Go up, please. You'll do better for your career. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Next up, Benoit Saint-Denis. Yeah, you got stopped twice, buddy. You won the fucking breakthrough fighter of the year last year, and then you lost twice and got finished twice. That's tough. Like, pack it up at this point. Go back to the special forces. Go back to fucking killing Malayan children. Not Malayan. Malayan? Is that how you say? Nah, hang on. Go back to killing African children, whatever the fuck you were doing while you were over there. I don't know. Anyway, nah, I'm kidding. Let's move on, though, to the next fighter. Joaquin Buckley, 4-0 in 2024. 4 great fights, 3 finishes. Vicente Luque, Wonderboy Thompson, Colby Covington, and Sultan Rizabov to add on as well as just sort of a throwaway fight because he wanted to get on the St. Louis card. But yeah, that's a pretty crazy resume. Like, Luque, on paper, Buckley's literally better than Woodley. Like, I'm going to just say that. Am I wrong, though? Wonderboy, KO, did it better than Woodley did. Luque beat Woodley, and then Colby beat Woodley. So as far as I'm concerned, on paper, Buckley's literally a 5-time welterweight champion. Anyway, let's move on though to the next fighter. Great year for Buckley, and turned his perception around with the fans as well after calling out Conor. Has now cemented himself as not like a fan favourite, but a very likeable fighter in my eyes. Let's move on though to the next fighter. Jan, another guy to deserve a mention. 2 wins over Figueiredo and Song Yadong, both by decision, both good fights, and getting back in the win column after a tough skid for Peter Jan. Good stuff for no mercy. Anyway, let's move on. Next up, Dominic Reyes. Great stuff for Reyes in 2024. Another bounce back year. Another bounce back fighter that had a bounce back in 2024. Wins over Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith. You know, you've beaten 2 GFL fighters, but still, I'll give him credit. That's why I'm not putting him too high up. If he'd gotten a 3rd win on earlier in the year or something, maybe he could be a tier higher. But yeah, good year overall for D. Ray. Let's move on though to the next fighter. 2024 was a tough year for Gilbert Burns, my brother. He's a good guy, you know, it's a tough guy. Gilbert Burns. But Burns did get finished by JDM, and he did lose to Brady. It's not like it was a brutal, like, this dude's completely cooked, like Tony Ferguson maxing, hanging up, go over to the GFL. But, like, it's like, yeah, Burns is well past it. He ain't getting back to the top 5. He's probably going to lose to fucking Michael Morales in his next fight. Like, for Burns, it's like ideally a Colby Covington fight is what he wants, because that's probably his most winnable fight in the top 10, I'd say. Anyway, let's move on though to another fighter. Yeah, Tai Tuivasa, pack it up, buddy. I ain't talking about your fucking Uber order. Like, pack that shit up. You're out of here. Get out the fucking sport. We don't even need you. Like, it's gotten past the point of like, oh, we want a Tai Tuivasa KO. I want this guy back. And it's like, I don't even want him to succeed if that's how he's gonna fucking treat himself. Like, if you fucking act like that and you train and fucking eat like that as a professional athlete, you don't deserve to win. Like, that's a bad... I want him to lose because it's a bad reflection on the sport if Tai ever wins a fucking fight again, because he's just a clear fucking disgrace of a human at this point. Just a fat slob of a man. So yeah, Tuivasa, you're getting subbed by fucking Marcin Tybor. He's a great... I love to fight him. It's over for you. Anyway, moving on. I don't even have sympathy for him anymore. Like, I don't... It's like Ferguson, I feel bad, because Ferguson genuinely can't step away from the cage, but it's like Tuivasa can't step away from the fucking McDonald's, so it's like, that's his fault completely. Anyway, let's move on though to another fighter. Shama. Alex Boatan Pereira. Great 2024. I don't know if you heard, but yeah, this dude was kind of running things in the big 2024, getting wins, saving events, saving 300, saving 303, saving 307 from a fucking Kayla Harris, from a Juliana Pena, Raquel Pennington main event probably. Maybe we would have got Asakura Pantoja on that card if they hadn't got Pereira, but still, saved us from probably a women's main event. Portan definitely gets the MVP of the year. I don't have him as my fighter of the year. There you go, spoiler. But there's still Jamal Hill KO, Yuri KO, Hill, Roundtree TKO. Great year for Pereira, obviously, no doubt about it. Let's move on though to another fighter. Next up, we got fucking Merab Davalishvili. This dude had a pretty good year. You know, he beat Triple C, guys. I'm an Olympic wrestler, guys. And then he also beat Sean O'Malley, fucking Krusty the Clown looking good year for Merat. He kind of lowered his stock a bit towards the end of the year with the potential ducking of Umar, but he's redeemed himself. Why did he redeem himself? He redeemed himself by getting that fight booked. He's got that fight booked for January. So yeah, we got a chance for good old Merat to get 3 pretty crazy wins in the space of 11 months. If he can get it done at UFC 311, we'll see what happens. Anyway, good year for Merat. Anyway, moving on. Next up, Caio Borralho, another Fighting Nerds guy who made a splash. Only 2-0 for Caio, but 2 great wins. KO over Paul Craig, which is what you should do to Paul Craig, Bo Nickel, and then a good win over Jared Cannoneir where he almost finished him twice. So yeah, overall, good year for Caio Borralho, continuing the Fighting Nerds hype. Moving on though to another fighter. Next up, Ricky Simone, 2 losses, both dominant ones to Mario Bautista and Vinicius Oliveira. Good opponents, but still a pretty rough year for Ricky Simone. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Johnny Walker got fucking slumped twice. It's just rough. It's raps for him. Pack it up. Send yourself off to GFL. I'm gonna keep fucking overdoing this joke to the moon. But yeah, go fight Alexander Gustafsson, bro. Like go fight Luke Rockhold. Go up to heavyweight in the fucking GFL and fight Robelis Despaigne for all I care. I don't know. Johnny Walker's cooked. He's going to fight Bogdan Guskov and lose, probably. We'll see if he can goofy it, but yeah, it's looking raps for Johnny Walker at this point. Anyway, moving on though. Move up to heavyweight. If you're going to stay in the UFC, go up to heavyweight, fight blobs. It'll work. They might have the power to knock you out. They don't have the skill to catch your chin. You'll be fine. Anyway, moving on. Ilya Top Toro as well. Fucking little bum. Reminds me of a little retard Artemlobov. Slap the nose off him. Ilya, though, in my opinion, I've got him as my fighter of the year. I think Holloway and Volk is fucking 10 times more impressive than Roundtree, Yuri, and Hill. Like, Roundtree, Yuri, and Hill, in my opinion, put together, is honestly the fucking same level of impressiveness as KOing Max Holloway or Volk. You can pick which one. I'd say the Holloway one's a bit more impressive based on context. But yeah, I just think Ilya is the fighter of the year. So yeah, top tier. I'm going to reorder this at the end of the video. But yeah, I've got him as my number 1 of the year. Anyway, moving on though to the next fighter. Next up, we've got Charles Johnson, 4-0, but not against the best level of opposition. Although, Azat Maxim was undefeated at the time. Josh Van was undefeated in the UFC at the time. He also beat Jake Hadley and Sumo Duaji. So yeah, it was a good 2024 for Charles Johnson though. Apparently, this dude's fighting Ramazan Temirov, which is not going to go well for him. So yeah, good luck, buddy. You're cooked. Anyway, moving on though to the next fighter. Next up, Payton Talbott. He got 2 wins, 2 finishes. Cameron Simon, Giannis Gamori, bums, as the great Lucas Tracy would say. So yeah, I'm not going to give him too much credit, but I'd be wrong to say he didn't at least make a splash this year. Set up for another win against Ioni Barcelos as well in January. Anyway, moving on. Paulo Costa. Not enough secret juice for him to actually succeed at this point in his career, unfortunately. He's just been exposed to be completely shit and mid, just proving that his legacy is overrated. Anyway, what did he do this year? He lost to Robert Whittaker. His only fucking highlight of the fight was landing a spinning wheel kick, and then he got walked down by Strickland, did nothing the whole time. And what's he doing now? Who knows? Not even booked. Anyway, let's move on though. Rough year for Costa. Not bad. Like, Costa's never going to have like a bad year unless he gets like finished, and he doesn't really get finished by many people. So that's one thing I'll give Izzy credit for. But yeah. Anyway, last fighter to discuss. In my opinion, the worst fighter of the year has got to go to Marc-Andre Barriault. He started off the year in his home country with a decision loss to Chris Curtis. He then proceeds to get fucking flatlined by, who did he get flatlined by? Joe Pyfer. He then proceeds to head back to his home country and then get absolutely slept out cold by Dustin Stoltzfus. It was a rough year for Marc-Andre Barriault. 2 losses in your home country, 2 flatline KOs, and 3 losses overall. An awful year in 2024. Anyway, that will do it, guys. There you go. I've switched up. That is my order. It's from left to right in terms of best to worst. So the right at the bottom is the very worst. The top left is the very best. So yeah, you guys can figure that out with your eyes. But other than that, goodbye. Hope you enjoyed. Drop some other video ideas you guys want to see, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.